The security agencies must justify the leadership by not disappointing the populace.
Worrisome trends in the security situation of the country will no longer be tolerated, says President Buhari.
This virus can only be eliminated if we agree to play our part.
Presidential task force warns Nigerians on the rising cases of COVID-19. Plus, steps taken by Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Doli to destroy Boko Haram terrorist leaders. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on NTA Network News. I'm Cyril Stover in Abuja. Ruth Ario Samuel is joining us from Lagos. Jenny Bassi is in Port Harcourt. And later on, Abdurrahman Usman Jibrila will join us from Sokoto. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the nation's armed forces and other security agencies to immediately reverse the current worrisome trend in the security situation of the country, describing it as intolerable. Addressing the top brass of Nigeria's security architecture, he summoned to a crucial meeting. The president was emphatic that their best is so far not good enough towards restoring the desired peace enterprise for national growth and development. State House correspondent Adam Sambu has details.
President Muhammadu Buhari summoned the meeting in response to the declining security situation in the country, which according to him is very embarrassing. During the closed-door meeting with the operational heads of the various security services as well as their intelligence components, the president described as unacceptable the continuous attacks and killings of defenseless Nigerians by criminal elements. The National Security Advisor, Babagana Munguno, who addressed newsmen after the meeting, said President Buhari has virtually lost his cool.
He is extremely unhappy about what is happening, and he feels that even though the security agencies are doing their best is not good enough for him, and he wants an immediate reversal of the current trend, an immediate reversal of our misfortunes in all their dimensions.
In no uncertain terms, the president told the security chiefs that none of them was forced on him. Rather, he selected them individually based on available records, and therefore living up to their expectations is a task that must not be compromised.
And therefore, he wants the security agencies to take into consideration the wider implication of the gradual descent of the security of this country. The security agencies must justify the leadership by not disappointing the populace. He is not going to accept any further escalation of the security situation.
President Buhari said unless the nation is effectively secured, the pursuit of national development objectives will be an exercise in futility. He said the proliferation of drugs, small arms, and light weapons must be checked, so also the use of unregistered SIM cards.
Mr. President has directed that I, as a National Security Advisor, should link up with the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy to work out a blueprint to ensure we wrestle the irresponsible use of these SIM cards. Of course, I have my colleagues, the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of the Department of State Services, to help in this issue.
The Nigerian leader was also emphatic that he will no longer tolerate the reported lack of synergy within the security sector.
And he has left us in no doubt. The convergence of efforts, the confluence of all ideas, be they operational or intelligence, must be achieved so that we no longer, if at all, there was this notion that groups were working in silos or stovepiping, they desist from that with immediate effect. We must have a central platform to coordinate all the efforts of operations and security. it is also incumbent on the wider Nigerian population to key into whatever the security agencies are doing.
The National Security Advisor told journalists that the security chiefs assured the president at the meeting that they will not only redouble their efforts, but do whatever it takes towards reversing what he called their dwindling fortunes for the betterment of the country. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
In the meantime, the Nigerian military says the air task force of Operation Lafia Dole has destroyed a compound housing some high-value Boko Haram terrorist leaders and neutralized some of their fighters at Garim Maluma on the fringes of the Sambisa forest in Borno State. A statement by Director Defense Media Operations Major General John Enenche says this was achieved through massive airstrikes executed to mark the launch of Operation Long Reach, a new subsidiary operation in the theater, which commenced on the 16th of June. The Air Task Force dispatched intelligence aircraft and fighter jets to attack the location at Garim Maluma, a major node in the Boko Haram line of communication. Many terrorist fighters were observed in the high-value target location, which NAF fighter jets destroyed. The Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, who was in Maiduguri to flag off Operation Long Reach, commends the Air Task Force and directs them to remain resolute in routing the terrorists. In other news, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated Evariste Ndayishimiye on assumption of office as President of Burundi after a swearing-in ceremony on Thursday in the political capital, Gitega. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says the President also felicitates with the government and people of Burundi on the historic peaceful transition to a democratically elected government after the sudden demise of President Pierre Nkurunziza. With a resounding victory at the polls, the Nigerian leader believes that President Ndayishimiye, who had served as Secretary General of the ruling CNDD-FDD party and played an active role in guiding the country on the path of peace and development, has what it takes to consolidate democracy in the East African country. President Buhari looks forward to working with the new Burundian leader and his government to strengthen the warm relationship between the two countries. The federal, states and local governments have shared 547.309 billion naira as federation allocation for the month of May 2020. The amount includes gross revenue, VAT, exchange gain and excess bank charges recovered. The federal government received 219.799 billion naira, states got 152.436 billion naira, while local governments got 114.095 billion naira. The oil-producing states got 37.021 billion naira as 13% derivation. A statement by the Director of Information, Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Hassan Dudu, indicates that value-added tax for May 2020 was 103.873 billion naira, in contrast with 94.498 billion naira collected in April 2020, which eventually shows an increase of 9.377 billion naira. And Nigeria's lottery and gaming industry is worth trillions of naira, but sharp practices by operators are denying government revenues, running into billions of naira. The House of Representatives therefore invited stakeholders for a roundtable to inject some sanity into the industry. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
The House Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs, in line with House of Representatives resolution at plenary in March 2020, informed stakeholders in the lottery and gaming industry that they must conduct their activities within legal limits. Deputy Chairman of the committee, Representative Mansur Mashi, stressed that operators should remit revenue to government or face sanctions.
A workable solution can be achieved so that all players will work harmoniously towards achieving an optimum potential of the industry.
The National Lottery Trust Fund lamented the operation of some games causing disagreements among the operators.
It is imperative that all the parties and stakeholders in this matter must act according to the National Lottery Act.
It is therefore the duty of this committee to employ all the powers vested in its offices to bring offenders to justice.
Lottery operators at the meeting appealed for a level playing field in the interest of all parties.
The issue is not strictly about rift between Western Lotto and Premier Lotto. It is a rift between what is good and bad.
Let the courts determine. Let any form of agreement in whatsoever form, whether any terms of agreement or this thing, it will just kill the industry.
The committee says it will soon amend the Nigerian Lottery Regulatory Commission of 2005 to meet global best practices. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And the Federal Ministry of Justice is engaging respective heads of courts for the establishment of specialized courts for the speedy and seamless trial of rape and gender-based violence offences in Nigeria. Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, made this known when the National Human Rights Commission submitted an action plan on gender violence. Omenka Marachuku reports.
The statistics of women and girls being raped and abused on a daily basis comes from all parts and regions of the country. All these have placed the issues of sexual, gender-based violence with their human rights being violated. To tackle this menace, the Federal Ministry of Justice, National Human Rights Commission, and other relevant agencies are developing standard operating procedures for speedy and effective law enforcement response on gender-based violence offences in Nigeria.
We know that this is a collective matter in which all of us should be on deck.
Rape and sexual and gender-based violence is a gross violation of human rights as well as a crime.
To the point where hardly does a day pass that we do not hear unimaginable things. And when we stand together to say no, it has a resounding effect because as we speak to the rest of the world, we're speaking to ourselves.
Effective collaboration of various stakeholders will assist the federal government in waging war against all forms of sexual abuses and gender-based violence in Nigeria. In Abuja, Umeka Amachuku, NTA News.
And more on gender-based violence, the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture is working towards a partnership with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs to launch a national campaign against rape and gender-based violence. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed disclosed this when he granted audience to a delegation from the National Human Rights Commission led by its Executive Secretary Anthony Ojukwu in Abuja. Anthony Forson reports.
Domestic violence is commonly committed against women, and in Nigeria, it is always rape, acid attacks, molestation, wife battering, and corporal punishment. With the Nigerian government taking legal proceedings to prosecute culprits, the Human Rights Commission of Nigeria has embarked on a 5-day activism tagged Equality and Dignity for Nigerian Women. This advocacy the Commission took to the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. In commending the Commission for its ongoing advocacy, Lai Mohammed said statistics have it that between January and May this year, a total of 717 rape cases were reported, making an average of 143 a month and about 5 cases per day.
The good news, however, is that between January and May this year, about 800 suspects were arrested, while 631 cases were conclusively investigated and charged to court.
It is against this background that the minister disclosed the planned partnership between the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs to create the awareness for citizens to own the fight.
I can assure you that the federal government will do everything possible to stem the growing tide of rape and gender-based violence in the country.
There is need to target men champions on the campaign against rape and critical voices that speak out against rape and SDBV. Community leaders, religious leaders, heads of households should be targeted in the sensitization on rape and sexual and gender-based violence.
He assured the minister that the advocacy will be stepped up to drive home the point that victims have a right to dignity. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And Ruth in Lagos is standing by with some reports, including that of torrential rains. Ruth, this is where you come in.
Now, flash floods, submerged roads, and waterlogged houses have left many residents of Lagos traumatized on Thursday following unprecedented rainfall that has persisted. Ken Igbeluge has the report. That report is not ready right now. Dangote Cement has reaffirmed its status as the biggest cement producer in Africa as it sets to make Nigeria self-sufficient in cement production and a major exporter of cement clinkers. Joy Ken Abapoya reports that the company has swung into action with the exportation of 27,800 metric tons of clinker to Senegal.
This maiden historic voyage from its export terminal in Apapa Port places Nigeria as one of the leaders in clinker exportation in the world. Dangote Cement says the country will raise the quantity of clinker export to other African countries within the next few weeks. This development is expected to position Nigeria to participate fully in the Africa Free Trade Liberalization Agreement when it comes into effect and improve intra-regional trade within the ECOWAS region. Group Executive Director Dangote Group, Sada Lada Baki, says the move will generate foreign exchange for the country, adding that the company will inaugurate another export terminal in One to enable the exportation of clinker to its grinding facility in Cameroon. Dangote Cement says apart from revenue generation, 100 jobs have been created while targeting about 300 more applicants to work in the Lagos terminal. Dangote Cement, according to the Group Executive Director, plans to also export thousands of metric tons of clinker to Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and Ghana. Meanwhile, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has congratulated the company for spearheading Nigeria's export drive. In Lagos, Joy Ken Abapoya, NTA News.
We go back to our earlier story where flash floods, submerged roads, and waterlogged houses left many residents of Lagos traumatized on Thursday following unprecedented rainfall that had persisted. Ken Igbeluge has the report.
These are images of many layouts in the Lagos metropolis. The heavy rainfall began in the early hours of Thursday. Being a work day, crowds of people were trapped in their homes. Indoors was as flooded as the outdoors. It was a sorry sight to see some residents frantically battling the floods. Abel Ogunanya and Moritara Atata have lived in Lagos for many years. If there is anything that gives them anxiety, it is the rainy season. Their worries are not unfounded. Whenever it rains, some parts of the city get flooded. The flash floods in buildings and the affected roads is due largely to poor maintenance of the drainage system.
I stay around Idumota. There are many flood areas. The gutter are not well being cleaned. I urge the government, especially the state government or the local government, to try to use caterpillar to arrange to pack the canal.
Although the Nigerian Meteorological Agency has given a broader outlook of the quantity of rain for this year, it however recommends steps for states to take in order to reduce the impact.
The drainage need to be clear. These are things that we need to team up, we need to join hands together. It's not necessarily that government must be everywhere to clear the drainage. You will not lose anything by clearing the drainage around your house.
Clearing the drains, already aligned drains. We're also cleaning the ones that are not aligned. And we're also doing the work.
The emphasis is on cultivating proper waste disposal and ridding the drainages of unwanted waste as the rainy season sets to peak. In Lagos, Ken Igbeluge, NTA News.
That's it from Lagos. Network News continues with Cyril in Abuja.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back with the rest of the news. Nearly 500 Russian doctors have died after contracting COVID-19 as the World Health Organization halts the trial of hydroxychloroquine as treatment for the virus. Joyce Ometu has details of these and more on the pandemic.
Nigeria had a significant increase in the country's COVID-19 recovery toll on Wednesday as 344 patients were discharged in 24 hours. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC announced the figure in its latest update as the total number of recoveries in the country now stands at 5,967. The country now has a total of 17,735 cases of coronavirus with 469 deaths. Lagos State remains the epicenter of the pandemic in Nigeria with 7,616 infections. The FCT comes second with 1,391 cases. Trailing those two states is Kano. Continent-wide, the number of coronavirus cases in Africa as at 6 p.m. is 272,078, while 7,281 fatalities is recorded, with more than 126,000 recoveries. The World Health Organization (WHO) says it has stopped its research looking at the potential of the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for coronavirus. The health agency said that recent findings showed that hydroxychloroquine does not result in the reduction of mortality of hospitalized COVID-19 patients. In the meantime, statistics from Worldometer as at 6 p.m. indicates that 8,491,945 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed worldwide. Out of the number, 452,575 have died. Meanwhile, reports from Russia say nearly 500 doctors have died after contracting COVID-19 as the pandemic has taken a severe toll on its frontline doctors. Russia, which has a population of 145 million, has reported more than 500,000 coronavirus infections. And that's a global update on COVID-19. Many thanks for watching. I am Joyce Ometu.
And back on the domestic front, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has appealed to the National Association of Resident Doctors to call off its ongoing nationwide strike in order to safeguard the nation's public health amidst COVID-19. Chairman of the task force and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, made the appeal at Thursday's briefing in Abuja. Mitaire Ipen reports.
The threat by the National Association of Resident Doctors that its members in COVID-19 isolation and treatment centers will join the ongoing strike if their demands are not met is a source of concern.
Is it the appropriate time to take such drastic and adverse measures on issues that were negotiated some 6-7 years ago? This very complicated period, I want them to consider the appropriateness, whether this is the best time to press so hard their demands at the expense of exposing the entirety of our people to the perils and the scourge of COVID-19.
While appraising 3 months of its mandate, the task force says global experiences and local peculiarities have guided its national response strategy of prevention, contact tracing, isolation, and treatment for COVID-19.
We have updated case management guidelines with reviewed changes like discharge criteria and medication used. Our treatment centers will also be getting an advisory to test the applicability of a drug recently repurposed and announced as being effective for treatment of COVID-19.
It is mandatory for masks to be worn in public spaces. Masks are supposed to cover your nose and mouth.
Once everybody takes ownership of this pandemic, very little will be done. And this is why we are enlisting national rulers, faith leaders, and opinion leaders.
On the planned resumption of domestic flights,
we'll have some work to do. As such, June 21st is not a feasible date to resume operations domestic until we are sure and we confirm that we are ready to start in a safe, secure, organized, and efficient manner.
Nigerians are advised that the risk of contracting COVID-19 is higher at this stage of community transmission, hence the need to adhere to all precautionary guidelines. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
In a related development, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, has appealed to the resident doctors to call off their strike, as such action is not in the interest of the nation. The minister, who was speaking on NTA's current affairs program, Nigeria Today, said the National Association of Resident Doctors should make its claims known to the Ministry of Health instead of just embarking on an industrial action. At this time, Nigeria is battling with a global health crisis. Ngige highlighted efforts made so far by the federal government to ensure that the issues raised by the resident doctors are addressed.
And insurance companies have what they call no cover, no claim. So, but right now there is a cover. And this cover has even been extrapolated for all Nigerian workers. All. In case anybody loses his or her life during this pandemic, the family can lay claim. I have told them that. We also have top-up for medical people. Top-up that were donated to the PTF. I got the PTF to get that top-up life insurance to give to medical people only. We also have another insurance for them. For those who have gotten invalidation in the course of work or even lost their lives again, they will get an additional 90% from what we call Employee Compensation Act, which is being managed by the NSITF.
And the United States government, through its Agency for International Development, USAID, says it is committed to providing funds to Nigeria for the fight against the novel coronavirus. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth, made the declaration at the inauguration of a public health emergency response center in Bauchi via teleconference. Mahmoud Ibn Muhammad reports.
As a leader in humanitarian and health response to COVID-19 pandemic, the United States government has rolled out an assistance package for developing nations. And one of such is the establishment of public health response centers in Nigerian states. These assistance will support critical activities to control the spread of COVID-19, provide rapid public health information campaigns, water and sanitation, and the prevention and control of infections in healthcare facilities.
It also assists with HIV and AIDS control, including support for orphans and vulnerable children, and strengthening the state health system, as well as malaria prevention and treatment.
The facility that we have provided will really deepen our capacity for e-governance and others. We have established a platform where we will be able to have e-governance in terms of COVID-19 response at our own line in terms of online communication.
According to the United States ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth, the assistance is rolling out gradually as they reconfigure priorities in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In Bauchi, Mahmoud Ibn Muhammad, NTA News.
And at a time the world is battling the threat posed by the global pandemic to human lives, economies, and other social structures, community response to preventive measures still remains on the average. Now, this is the assessment of the National Orientation Agency during the presentation of its second-term report on the impact of COVID-19 lockdown on the country. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports.
The alarming rise in number of infected persons from COVID-19 in the new phase of lockdown has engaged and sustained stakeholders' commitment in preventing further spread of the virus. And as an agency empowered by law to enlighten Nigerians on issues of national importance, the National Orientation Agency says cultural, religious, and social beliefs constitute setbacks to manage the pandemic.
Our report also showed
that the lockdown was initially effective, but subsequently it waned.
Director General NOA Garba Abari expressed displeasure over non-compliance with COVID-19 restrictions, which largely account for increase in community transmission, but was quick to say more strategies are underway for aggressive awareness.
The NOA found in the Policy and the Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, a formidable ally to defend the sensitization efforts of government.
The National Orientation Agency appeals for adequate support at the sub-national levels to effectively educate the public on certain risky behaviors that could hamper the success in the fight against the pandemic. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
The Boko Haram insurgents in Borno State has caused widespread devastation to the health system, with 2/3 of the more than 300 health facilities destroyed by the insurgents or ceased to function. Pauline Kujevana examines improvements in the health system in 1 year of Governor Babagana Umar Zulum's administration in Borno State.
As a result of the concentration of the high population of people in the urban areas due to the displacement of people occasioned by the Boko Haram insurgency, Borno State government saw the need to expand the existing health facilities and also construct new ones to contain any health challenge of its people. On assumption into office as Borno State Governor on May 29, 2019, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum built 37 new primary comprehensive and maternity health centers, as well as renovated 3 general hospitals. For an effective healthcare system in the state, Professor Zulum's administration has, within the first 1 year in office, commissioned 5 new primary healthcare centers at Kulka, Kwayabura, Kwajafa, and General Hospital Azuri, while work is ongoing at the primary healthcare centers in Wamdio, Mbalala, and Mafa, among others. In addition, the remodeling of Umaru Shehu Ultramodern Hospital and rehabilitation of general hospitals in Biu and Lassa have been completed, while 1,080-seater auditorium at the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital is ongoing.
I thank Borno State government for assisting us and the workers here.
Kuma mun gode ma gwamna mai girma alfarman da ya mana ya bude nan wajen ana mana aiki kyauta.
Akwai kula kuma shi ba Alhaji Umar Zulum ya gaskiya ya kyauta, Allah ya kyautata mishi shi ma.
Similarly, primary healthcare facilities have been upgraded to strengthen referral system by providing linkages with secondary healthcare facilities. The doggedness of the governor concerning the health of his people was demonstrated when coronavirus was first confirmed in Nigeria, as he immediately directed the activation of Emergency Operations Center and 9 pillars of responses to prevent the outbreak and protect the people, considering their vulnerability due to the years of Boko Haram insurgency. However, when the pandemic made a landfall in the state on 19 April 2020, the governor swiftly inaugurated a high-powered response team for the control and prevention of COVID-19, chaired by his deputy, Umar Usman Kalafur.
Normally, from other isolation centers, we have been hearing that doctors don't even visit them, but here they're always there at our service.
The commitment of Borno State government and partners has slowed down the rate of COVID-19 infections now in Borno, and the activation of 6 isolation centers has ensured that those tested positive are attended to in a safe and convenient facilities. With this huge investment in the health sector, Borno is optimistic to overcome coronavirus pandemic and other health challenges of its people. In Maiduguri, Pauline Kujevana, NTA News.
Now for a bit on the political landscape, the All Progressives Congress has inaugurated the party's Edo State Governorship Primary Election and Election Appeal Committees. National Vice Chairman South of the party, Hilad Eta, inaugurated the committees, one of which has Imo State Governor Hope Uzodimma as its chairman. Salihu Abdullahi reports.
Activities at the APC National Secretariat are building up ahead of the 2020 Edo and Ondo governorship elections. This event is preceding the June 22nd Edo State governorship primary election after the successful screening of the party's aspirants. The 7-member primary election committee has Imo State Governor Hope Uzodimma as chairman, Senator Ajibola Bashiru as secretary, and the 5-member primary election appeal committee has Yusuf Ibrahim Naji as chairman and Kayode Ajulo as secretary.
Their job is very simple: to carry out the process of selecting the flag bearer of the party in Edo State.
There is a law there now that does not allow more than 20 people to gather at a space. That is one of the beauties of direct primaries. So when we get down to Edo State, we deploy the necessary manpower to the various polling units, with also a definite instruction that will not violate the local legislation, that will enable our members not to gather more than 20 people at a place. And by so doing, with a segmented approach, we will conduct a transparent, free and fair primaries.
The committees have assured credibility and fairness in the discharge of the task ahead. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
And still on the forthcoming Edo polls, the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party has postponed the Edo State governorship primary election, earlier scheduled for Friday, June 19th and Saturday, June 20th, to a new date of Tuesday, June 23. A statement from the party's National Publicity Secretary, Kola Ologbodio, says the decision is predicated on exigencies of party activities. It further says all governorship aspirants, critical stakeholders, party faithful, and its teaming supporters, particularly in Edo State, are to accordingly take note. The party further reminded members that all activities shall be in accordance with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control's guidelines on COVID-19 as it concerns social, physical distancing at public gatherings. And our next up on Network News is Port Harcourt. Jenny is standing by. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, Cyril. Good evening and welcome. Construction work at the permanent head office of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, will be completed in 6 weeks' time and presented to President Muhammadu Buhari for commissioning. NDDC Acting Managing Director, Professor Kemebradi Kumo-Pandey, disclosed this to newsmen in Port Harcourt. Joy Uzo reports.
On assumption of office, Acting Managing Director of the NDDC, Professor Kemebradi Kumo-Pandey, was taken on a tour of what has been the Commission's temporary head office for the past 25 years. Professor Pandey would described the space as unconducive for efficiency and productivity, promised that the Interim Management Committee will expedite action to ensure a speedy completion of its permanent headquarters. This explains why his first official assignment outside the Commission was to inspect the progress of work on the project. However, due to delays occasioned by the coronavirus pandemic, the NDDC new edifice could not meet the March 31 deadline. In spite of this, work has been in steady progress, taking the bull by the horn as a strategy to speed up completion. Professor Pandey relocated from his old office in the Port Harcourt-Aba Express Road to a newly furnished one at the Commission's Eastern Bypass Permanent Headquarters.
Yes, it is not fully completed, but it's a work in progress about to finish. A lot of the interface between the contractors and staff will be brought to the barest minimum if we're allowed to do the things we're planning to do.
Professor Pandey paid respect to the NDDC late Executive Director of Finance and Administration, Mr. Etang Basi, who passed on a month ago. In Port Harcourt, Joy Uzo, NTA News.
We are done from here. We'll now join Abdul Rahman in.
Oh, well, sorry about that. We'll just take a short break now. We'll be back with the rest of the news. Right, thanks for staying with us. The federal government is engaging electricity distribution companies to bring them up to speed with the reforms in the power sector in order to improve power supply in the country. Minister of State for Power, Godi Jediaga, was at the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company headquarters in continuation of his interaction with key players in electricity business. Joshua Ojito reports.
Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, AEDC, is one out of the 11 distribution companies providing electricity to Niger, Kogi and Nasarawa states, as well as the FCT, while federal government is working on streamlining the value chain of electricity supply to address challenges through its power sector recovery program. Performance of distribution companies is key in achieving the target of 11,000 megawatts by 2023. Minister of State for Power, Godi J.D. Agba, is at the headquarters of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company to interface with the management on their performance. With the target to meet at 3,000 customers daily, the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company is said to have metered more than 250,000 customers, the highest by any distribution companies in the country.
This goes to copy what AEDC has here. If others copy what they have here, we'll have better improvement and services. And I don't think anybody is thinking of dismantling this course. We are able to get customer complaints and manage the rate at which we are resolving them. Now, that system is anchored on a more robust commercial management system, which we use internally to improve process efficiencies.
However, backlog of unpaid electricity bills by some ministries, departments and agencies of government, as well as import duties on meters, remain impediments to the performance of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, and the minister promised government support for the distribution companies. In Abuja, Joshua Ojito, NTA News.
Some airports across Nigeria are expected to reopen on the 21st of June, but unions of aviation workers say safety and security stand compromised if airports reopen on that date. Leaders of 3 aviation unions interacted with the Senate Committee on Aviation, during which they called for special intervention to put certain infrastructure in place before restarting the industry. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
Leaders of Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers, and Joint Aviation Trade Unions Forum were at the National Assembly to seek parliamentary intervention in what they described as precarious situation in the aviation industry at the moment. The union called for urgent special intervention for operators and putting in place safety measures and to address non-payment of workers' remuneration challenges before reopening flight operations.
So let us know why the threat to go on strike now.
We are not asking for a blanket palliatives or intervention to these operators. We are asking that in the wisdom of the Senate to consider tying this to ensuring that jobs are saved.
The representatives of the aviation workers canvassed provision of fund where airlines can borrow money with single-digit interest to save the industry from total collapse.
We are equally asking for some intervention, incentive, by way of reduction in the price of Jet A1.
The aviation, nobody can compromise it. We want the airport to be unlocked, but we want a secure and safe aviation industry in Nigeria.
The need for recertification of airline operators, as some of them have been dormant within the lockdown period, and to ensure that personal protective equipment are provided for workers were among the issues tabled by the unions. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Well, as you must have heard at the PTF's briefing today, it was clearly stated that reopening the airports on the 21st was no longer feasible. The United Nations has applauded the federal government's commitment towards the protection of refugees in the country. This was emphasized at a media chat organized by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in partnership with the United Nations Refugee Agency to commemorate this year's World Refugee Day. Ruth Aguele reports.
Globally, the challenges of refugees remain predominant as they struggle for survival in the midst of conflicts that has given rise to their displacements. Attention to this group of people necessitated the World Refugee Day, observed every 20th of June, to raise awareness on their protection and inclusion.
because it demonstrates our commitment.
Different partners at this gathering are lending their voices as a way to show commitment, even as the world battles with a dire pandemic.
This year World Refugee Day was carefully crafted out as everyone can make a difference, every action counts. The government of Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari deployed an inclusive approach in carrying out humanitarian interventions. This is exemplified in the context-specific interventions carried out during the period of the COVID-19 pandemic, targeting the most vulnerable population, including the refugees and IDPs.
We make a strong statement today to say that we recognize you, we stand with you, and will continue to support you to a place of improved dignity and prosperity.
The recent world events have confirmed that we are one human community. Whether you're a refugee, an IDP, whether you or me, we all count and we all need each other.
And I'm giving a big thank you to our leaders, the Federal Ministry and the Commission of the Refugees.
The general interest is for more concerted efforts and determined actions for sustainable development and inclusive society for all. In Abuja, Ruth Aguela, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has described the governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, as an epitome of loyalty and solid commitment to the growth of the All Progressives Congress. In a statement by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, the President congratulated the governor, who turned 45 on June 18th. President Buhari prayed God to continue to bless Yahaya Bello with good health and long life to serve the people of Kogi State better. The death has been announced of an industrialist, Alhaji Mutairu Ainila Tijani, popularly known as Mats, and the Akbashi Adin of Egbaland. Aged 82, Alhaji Tijani died yesterday at his Agege, Lagos residence and has been buried in Abeokuta. He is survived by 21 children and 37 grandchildren. The Corps Marshal, Federal Road Safety Corps, Dr. Bubuyi Uyemi, has expressed sympathy over the sudden demise of 3 personnel of the Corps, and he has condoled with their families, the Jebu-Ode Unit Command where they served, and the entire management and staff of the Federal Road Safety Corps. A statement by the Corps Public Education Officer Bisi Kazim says the Corps Marshal described as unfortunate the incident on Wednesday, which was caused by lightning that claimed the lives of the officers. And that concludes Network News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Cyril Stober. Good night.
Anybody who is exposed can contract coronavirus.